Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar. Today, we will be discussing how to increase patient retention and 6 strategies you can use to maintain and grow your patient base. My name is Pauline Ith, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. I'm an account manager here at GMR Web Team, where we help healthcare practices grow their revenue and patient base. We help increase patient satisfaction, establish a stellar online reputation, and of course, grow online presences. GMR Web Team also helps practices adapt to the increasingly competitive healthcare landscape. So let's get started on today's agenda. So first, we'll share a little bit more about our 3-pillar philosophy approach to marketing and how it relates to patient retention. We'll also talk about why patient retention is important to your practice's success. And then, of course, 6 tips to increase patient retention. At the end, we'll wrap everything up with a Q&A session. So please leave your questions in the comment box, and I'll select a few to answer. If we have a large amount of questions, don't worry, I'll make sure to email you guys with the answers to your questions. So perfect. So before we talk about patient retention strategies, I just wanted to share a little bit more about GMR's unique approach into how we help practices grow and maintain a healthy and loyal patient base. So at GMR, we just created this approach called 3 pillars of healthcare marketing success. So we believe that your marketing strategy should be strengthening these 3 pillars. So first pillar is a loyal and satisfied patient base. So you want to make sure you're relentlessly focusing on improving patient satisfaction and delighting patients and improving the patient experience, because of course, if patients are not satisfied, they'll leave your practice, right? So all efforts you've implemented to acquire them, it's going to be rendered useless, right, if you're not keeping them. Second thing is a stellar online reputation. So having great reviews and a great online reputation helps you acquire more patients. So we know that an overwhelming majority of patients start their healthcare provider selection by checking online reviews, regardless of whether they learned about the provider through a physician or other referral sources, such as a company listing or online search. Last is, of course, a robust online presence. So that's typically what people think of when they think of digital marketing for healthcare. So we definitely want to make sure you improve your online presence, right? And I want to emphasize that with this approach, we know that everything is connected. So better online presence results in more patients. Satisfied patients are more likely to stay with your practice and leave reviews and refer you to other friends and family members. So we believe that no single strategy will result in a large amount of patient volume, right? So you're only doing social media, you're not going the full potential that you could potentially if you're enabling different strategies, right? So that's why you'll see that a lot of our patient retention strategies relate to patient experience, doing your online presence, patient satisfaction, of course. So just keep that in mind, as we go through the presentation. So a lot of practices focus on patient acquisition. How can I get more patients? How can I get more new patient requests? So don't get me wrong, that's incredibly important, but many people forget about the retention aspect, right? And think about it, healthcare isn't too different from other industries in that you want to make sure you retain everyone you acquire, right? So think about GMR Web Team, for example. If we're always focusing on partnering with more healthcare practices, but actually forget to deliver on our promises, then we're losing clients left and right? So think about that when it comes to your healthcare business. So from a monetary aspect, acquiring a new customer can be, a new patient can be 5 to 25 times more expensive than retaining an existing one. So that makes sense, right? Imagine you're putting a lot of time, effort, and money into getting new patients. However, these patients drop off after their first visit or choose another practice after, then you're wasting money. Also, if you're acquiring patients at a really high rate, loyal patients might find, okay, my experience isn't what it used to be. I'm not getting the level of care that I'm satisfied with. So keep that in mind. So new patients are important, but so is retaining your current ones. We can also see that increasing patient retention results in a 25 to 95% increase in profits. Remember, happy patients will keep coming back and refer you to other practices, spread the good word about you. That's basically, marketing and new patients for free, right? So keep that in mind. So acquisition costs aside, you'll also want to consider the state of healthcare right now, right? So patients have more information and options than ever before. They also demand more from their healthcare experience, right? So according to Deloitte's study we looked into that was conducted in 2020, they surveyed over 4,000 people to find out, what they expect from their healthcare experience. And they found that consumers are increasingly active and engaged with their healthcare providers, right? So they want doctors who listen, clear communication. They want to be part of the decision-making process. Think about it. So with more options available at a patient's fingertips, they don't have to just pick their local neighborhood doctor, right? So if they are unsatisfied, there's plenty of other options for them to go somewhere else. So it's even more why retention is just as critical as acquisition. So let's head into exactly 6 ways you can increase patient retention. So first tip, I'm sure you already know, is to deliver excellent care and a great patient experience. So whether they are a new patient or returning one, every interaction you have with your staff, every interaction a patient has with your staff and providers matters. So many people think that, delivering great care is enough, and it is important, but think about it. They now expect, patients now expect more from their visits, right? Like the previous slide we just discussed. So make sure you train your staff properly on how to communicate with patients and personalized experience. So this means greeting patients, properly handling phone calls, being compassionate and caring as possible. Something I want to know is that with our own personal clients, we find that if patients do leave negative feedback, it's typically not to do with the level of care, right? So it could be due to how phone calls are being handled, long wait times, if they're not getting their questions properly answered by the front desk staff. So even if you have super loyal patients, if they're unsatisfied with the front desk and how the practice is run, they'll still leave your practice even if they are essentially happy with the provider care, right? So that's critical that you keep this in mind. So like I keep emphasizing, again, every encounter matters. So just some ways I want to list here how you can improve the patient experience is just make sure you find ways to minimize wait times, stay on schedule, also work really closely with your staff, right? Come up with a game plan and get their, insights. Have patients told them they really like a specific, front desk staff member? Do they love a certain provider? See what your team is doing right, but also see what the common complaints are, right? And make sure you set up processes to mitigate those complaints and making sure the experience is top notch. You also want to find out what's going on in exam rooms, right? Do providers have great bedside manner? Are patient questions being answered? Think about it if you have new doctors, multiple doctors, multiple location practices. A lot of things can sometimes fall through the cracks because there's a lot going on. So you just want to make sure any new providers that you bring on, they are meeting that expectation, right? That you already set for your current patient base. And again, remember when it comes to, delivering a great patient experience, it all starts from, the initial online or phone call request to make an appointment all the way to when they get checked out and beyond that. So keep that in mind. So we talked about making sure you deliver a great experience. And one of the great ways to do that is actually to create a process to get patient feedback. So we recommend it's best to automate this process to survey patients. Many EMRs do have the option to do post-appointment surveys via text or email. GMR, we have one specifically built out for our clients, so they don't have to use an extra vendor. But overall, we just recommend sending a text or email survey right after your patients check out of their appointment, or the very least, same day they do. Sending out that first survey a few days or even a week after will reduce your survey response rate and feedback will be a lot less fresh, right? So in addition to that, patients, they're just going to be less likely to remember what happened at the appointment, especially if it's a week after. A lot of things go on within a week, right? So another tip I have is to make sure you use a measurable format. We recommend using NPS. It just provides better conversion rates and allows you to quantify the results in the survey responses. So with NPS, you're able to identify who's a promoter, so people who are most loyal, who's passive, so they're there, but they're not the most excited. And then of course, people who negatively react to their experience, right? So we want to make sure we know who those people are. And of course, like I said, it produces higher survey responses. So let me show you exactly how we do our patient satisfaction monitoring process. Okay, so this is an example of a survey that we give out. Like I said, it's an NPS format, Net Promoter Score. So we basically ask patients a simple question: how likely is it that you would recommend us to a friend or family member? We then use a 0 through 10 scale and send out a text first, and then via email as a follow-up if they don't have a text or have a phone number. So once they select their score, they'll be asked to write out additional feedback in a comment box. So our system then groups the responses into 3 categories. 9 to 10 are promoters. These patients are very satisfied and indicate a high level of loyalty. 7 to 8 are passives. So these patients are satisfied, but they're vulnerable to competition, right? They're vulnerable to leaving your practice. 0 to 6 are detractors. And these are people who will not recommend your practice, will likely leave, and will hinder your growth and spread the negative word of mouth. So this is just insight into how we do it. It's pretty simple, right? It's an easy question. It doesn't take too much time to respond. And of course, your survey can be customized to what works best for your particular patient base. However, we just don't recommend creating a really lengthy survey. Keep it to 1 to 5 questions max. The longer the survey, the less likely someone will sit there and fill out the whole thing. So just keep that in mind. One key point of our patient satisfaction monitoring process is making sure we retain any of those detractors the best we can, right? So with detractors, our clients always get immediate notification of these negative survey responses. And it's critical, like I said, with whatever system you use, you address negative feedback immediately. And this helps you better retain patients, like I said, so you can identify issues before they compound over time. Because if you let them build up, you're going to be losing so many more patients before you realize there was a problem in the first place. Our recommendation is that you want to assign a practice manager or patient experience coordinator to handle all negative and neutral responses. This is especially true if you're a high volume practice with multiple locations. It can be kind of overwhelming for one person to handle it all. So by divvying up the work, you'll get a better service recovery rate also. So your practice manager, whoever's handling the negative responses, should be calling out and reaching out to the patient to better understand what went wrong. And a lot of times we find that, like I said, the issues aren't related to the provider care. Maybe it has more to do with front desk staff, or just they didn't get their prescription or something along those lines. And a lot of times when patients see that you're reaching out, it makes such a positive impression on them that they'll be more likely to stay with your practice, right? Because that means you're not just surveying to survey, you're actually surveying and reaching out and taking that feedback into account, right? So something we definitely recommend you doing. Next thing I just wanted to share is how we kind of give our clients a bird's eye view of how their satisfaction looks like. So we can see the score, how many negative responses they've received in a certain time frame, how many reviews they've acquired, and of course the breakdown of happy, neutral, and unhappy, right? So those NPS categories. Just something to let you know, a good survey conversion rate we typically see is about at least 20 to 25%. So if you have something less, you want to take a look at how you're sending out surveys and at what time you're sending them out. We usually recommend end of day if you can't survey them right away after their appointment. So something to keep in mind. Next thing I also wanted to share for those multi-provider, multi-location practices, making sure you survey based on that information, right? Because that allows you to identify if a certain provider or practice location is underperforming. Because like I said, if all the locations are doing well and one is doing pretty poor, you're still going to be losing patients, right? So keeping tabs on everybody helps you further grow your loyal patient base and increase those retention rates. So next thing, continuing patient education after the appointment. So this is something we find really helps with retention. So why should you do this? It shows that your practice cares and that you are patient-centric, right? You're going beyond just collecting reimbursements and collecting co-pays and things like that. You want to make sure you show, hey, I really do care about your care. And like we mentioned, patients are more involved with their care than ever before, and they're always seeking information about their diagnosis, treatment options, how they can improve their health. So by sharing helpful information and the latest tips, it just makes you stand out against other providers in the area. So third thing, it also shows that you're a thought leader, right? You remain the expert in all things related to their health, and your practice is top of mind. So if they ever have concerns about their health, it's not like they necessarily need to go to Google. They can contact you at your office. So that's something we recommend, and we want to share some strategies on patient education. So first thing is creating a blog and filling it with educational content. So blogs can be used to share a lot more in-depth information. So this can be tips on how to protect yourself from the seasonal flu, how to lower blood pressure. I saw a lot of clients doing blogs on coronavirus. So when the pandemic first started, educating patients and providing them, data from an actual medical provider, right? And depending on your specialty, the content you can provide will vary. But just think about what patients are asking you about the most, and that can help determine what content to write. Second thing is to utilize social media. So this kind of relates a little bit to retention, but also to patient acquisition, but providing a way for you to showcase quick tips and your expertise. It's a great way to also share news, the latest studies or awareness for things like Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and telling people to making sure they get their mammograms and do self-checks all the time. Like I said, it helps engage your patients while also acquiring more new patients. So killing two birds with one stone. Third, newsletters. So this is another great way to engage patients and keep your practice top of mind. We work with all of our clients to set out monthly newsletters, so I would love to show you what we do for one particular client. So this is one we do for our dental clients. I definitely suggest, providing photos of what's going on at your practice. This particular client decided on these two photos. Patients love to see what's going on, love to see your staff, and just that helps them be more engaged, right? Second thing is any new blogs you have posted. So for example, with this particular newsletter, we talked about treating cold sores. So that's something we share in this blog. Another thing we share too is making sure people get in for their preventive health checks, right? So any routine exams or screenings patients need to come in for, include that in your newsletter. So for example, here we talked about their next hygiene appointment and how good oral health translates to good overall health, right? And then like I already said, health tips or recommendations. So for example, if you're a dentist, giving them tips on how to floss. If you're an oncologist, sharing about how to do a self-evaluation for breast exams and things of that nature. So I'm sure you have a lot of tips you can provide, so it should be pretty easy to put it in a newsletter. Fourth thing here is online scheduling and intake options. So this is all based off using technology to help improve the experience and increase retention. So this definitely starts with allowing patients to request appointments 24/7. You definitely need this if you're a high volume practice and your phone is ringing all day, right? So it can be definitely frustrating for a patient to call and have no one be able to pick up, or you get put on hold for 15, 20 minutes plus, right? So allowing for, having forms on your website that allows people to request appointments, contact you for things like prescription or questions about insurance, really help making sure you get all the inquiries in and people aren't waiting. It's even better, obviously, you can get an automated scheduling system up. So if someone books an appointment, it connects with your EMR, but at the very least have a form that allows people to reach out to you. Online intake and patient portals and payment portals also relate back to the same thing, right? So it helps minimize paperwork done at the office, better experience, right? They can just come in, they know their paperwork is done, and your team can also process and see if there's anything missing, right? And it also takes extra admin work off your team's plate so they can actually focus on connecting with patients right in the office and taking care of issues there. So that's something I definitely recommend, really easy to implement on your website. Fifth thing is appointment confirmation reminders. So one of the best ways to retain patients is actually making sure they show up, right? So sending appointment reminders through text and email can definitely help reduce no-shows, and it just allows patients to easily confirm, cancel, or reschedule their appointments. And it also allows you, more information if you can get last-minute people in to your schedule. So I know a lot of practices do, they call, so that can definitely work. But like I said, if you're a high volume practice, you want your staff to spend their time on other things, having an automated system is best. And you'll want to find what schedule works best for your particular patients. In general, recommend about 3 reminders, so 1 week before, 3 days before, and then of course a day before their appointment. Obviously, if patients confirm, you don't need to send them any more reminders. And also, I recommend that if you have a strict cancellation policy, for example, patients need to let you know within 48 hours that, hey, they need to reschedule, then definitely have a reminder then kind of can help reduce unhappy patients getting that surprise fee, right? So making sure you have those reminders in. Last thing, it's really critical to retention is just reaching about overdue and preventive visits. So one of the best ways to do this is just making sure, they get scheduled right in the office when they are already there. So for example, if you're a dermatologist and a patient needs to return in 3 months to check on their mole, then you should have the patient scheduled when they check out. Or if, for example, if you're an oncology practice and patients do come in frequently for infusions or things like that, making sure they just have their appointment booked already. However, I know that's not always possible. Maybe some patients don't want to book right then and there. You can definitely still send out physical mail to let them know, hey, you need to come in. I still get this from my dentist, and it definitely works, but it may be a little more costly, right? Because you have to have someone design it and you have to do printouts and have someone actually spend time to send them out and making sure they get the right addresses. So with so much technology available, you should definitely utilize email and text to reach out to patients, right? So again, it helps you engage and let them know you're thinking about them and you want them to come in for their preventive visits, right? So it can be anything for your routine physical, their dental hygiene appointment, if they're due for a pap smear. It just helps them stay on top of their health also, right? And make sure you provide data of why they should be coming in for preventive visits or routine visits, right? Costs will build up over time if they don't see their doctor, right? Complications will arise, so you want to help them minimize that. So making sure you provide just information like, hey, this is why you should be coming in. I know some practices prefer to call patients sometimes about these things, but automating the processes where you can just takes off a lot of work from your staff's plates. I know some patient portals can send out these notifications, so just see what options are available for you. At GMR, we definitely can help our clients reach out and reactivate these patients. So just see what all the options are available. There's so much technology, so you should be utilizing it to the best of your ability. So now we're towards the end. Just want to go over the quick key points from our webinar today. So first, we talked about why patient retention is critical and how it helps keep acquisition costs down. Again, you can't grow if you keep losing every single patient you get or your loyal patients, right, that you already had. So we also talked about ensuring the patient experience from when they get their appointment to when they check out is a great one, and how we use surveys to measure satisfaction levels, right? And we also talked about continuing patient education beyond the visit with newsletters, social media, and making sure you stay the authority when it comes to their health. Also, appointment confirmation reminders can reduce no-shows, increase engagement, and making sure patients actually come in for the care they need. And then we also talked about utilizing different channels to recall and reactivate patients, right? For overdue exams, preventive visits, and making sure they come back for the care. So yeah, so that's essentially, 6 ways you can help increase retention. So I'll go ahead and take some questions right now if we have any here. Okay. So one question I have is, do we have to get permission from patients to email or text? So yeah, definitely. I think most practices do have some kind of paperwork allowing patients to identify whether they want to be contacted or not. So definitely have that in your standard process. And also making sure with all your emails, even if patients already opt in, always giving them an option to unsubscribe. Most email platforms should have that option, so make sure you have that. Another question here. I run a physical therapy practice, so my patients will come in for multiple sessions. Do you still recommend surveying them on the first visit? That's typically our consultation appointment. an intro and patients haven't seen results yet? Yeah, so this is a good question. If you're a practice that has consultations or, for example, PT where patients have to come in for multiple visits, I recommend surveying midway and then towards the end when they've completed their PT journey, for example, because that will most likely produce the best, most accurate feedback. So if you're, for example, you're a plastic surgeon and you have the initial consultation and the surgery and then follow up, see where you can get the most genuine feedback. I recommend probably towards the end where they have their post-op appointment, because I know if you're a plastic surgeon, there's a lot of the swelling and things, so patients have a lot of they might not be ready to give that feedback until the end when they've seen the final results. But I know some people, they want to know what happens during the consultations, right? So if someone has a bad experience, they can catch that right away. So it really does depend on what your practice finds helpful. So it just depends, right? And you're not held to like, we need to do exactly this forever and ever, and we can't change anything at all. So you find, hey, the response rate for the consultations isn't really good, then you should change it and move around your surveying options. So it's flexible. But I've heard some people consultation, they want to get surveyed, and some people, they don't want that. So it just depends what you're looking for. Regardless, just make sure you survey. Another question here. What if I have a patient that is too demanding? Sometimes it feels unreasonable to always cater to their needs. Okay, I definitely get that. Sometimes you have patients that are just a little bit unreasonable. What I recommend is just making sure you set boundaries and really, protect your staff and yourself. I've seen so many patients, especially my clients, during the pandemic. Sometimes people get a little bit more unreasonable when it comes to their health. So I definitely recommend, if you find that, okay, I don't think this patient's a good fit for our practice. I've seen some of my clients, they will help them find another provider that meets their expectations. And sometimes you might just have to cut a loss. And if they don't come back, they don't come back. But for the majority, I don't see that happen too often. It also helps, like in the initial appointment, just setting expectations and making clear your uncertain policies and what you expect from the patient. So making sure you draw those boundaries. So hopefully most of you guys aren't getting too many, demanding patients. But if they do end up leaving, at least you kind of learn a lesson about what they're looking for and what can you do next time to making sure, patients know what the expectations are. Okay, perfect. So those are all the questions we had today. Just want to let you know that if you need help growing your practice in terms of marketing, patient acquisition, retention, please schedule a consultation with us. We're more than happy to do a free consultation. You can reach us at gmrwebteam.com or by phone or by email, right? So one of our account managers will speak to you and we'll discuss exactly what you're doing right now and what you need to do to reach your goals, right? And grow further. So please feel free to reach out if you're interested in a free consultation. And I just want to thank everyone today for attending the webinar and hope you have a great rest of your day.